Good morning. I hope everybody can hear and see us. My name is Alexa Gerard, and I'm the interim deputy CEO. I almost welcomed myself as my old title, but I'm the new interim deputy CEO at the Southern African German Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and I'm very happy to welcome everyone here today, together with my colleagues from Advantage Austria, from the Swiss Business Hub, Southern Africa, and also from the Afrika-Verein. Welcome to everybody here today. I think we'll start in the next minute or two. If we can just let everybody join the meeting on time, and then we can start. Okay. Right, I think we should start, lest we waste too much time. So I'm going to, without further ado, hand over to my colleague Martin Meischel from the Austrian Trade Commission. Martin, do you want to do your opening words?
Thank you very much, Alexa. Also, a very warm welcome from my side. We are very happy to collaborate again with our German and Swiss colleagues, and also the colleagues from Namibia on this very interesting webinar. I'm very happy to see that we have more than 50 participants from Austria at this time. And I think all those participants from the DACH region, they are not here to hear our welcome remarks, but they're here to hear the experts regarding the power opportunities in Namibia. And I will be more than happy to hand over now to my colleague Stephanie from the Swiss Business Hub.
Yes, thank you, Martin, and good morning, grüezi, bonjour, buongiorno. As we would say it in Switzerland, and from a Swiss perspective. Also from my side, we're very happy to be part of this joint webinar. Maybe just a couple of words with regards to the theme. As we know, it's hydrogen and renewable energy focused, the sectors in Namibia. And I think this webinar lays actually the ground for building partnerships and with the Swiss, Austrian, and German companies, and as well with Namibian stakeholders. Highlight as well, I think in terms of research and commercialization of hydrogen solutions, I think there as well lay a lot of opportunities in connecting the ecosystems, be it on the Swiss side, but as well as on the side of the Austrian and German colleagues. But this said, I would like now as well to pass the word to Mr. Thomas Feidicke, the head of the Development Cooperation at the Embassy of the Federal Republic of Germany in Windhoek. Thank you, and over to you.
We're actually very lucky we've got the ambassador here with us today, His Excellency Thorsten Hutter. So I'm very happy to have him here today to stand in for Mr. Feidicke. Thorsten, the word is yours.
Thank you, Alexa. Thank you for this invitation. I'm happy to be with you. Look forward to an interesting webinar on doing business in Namibia's energy and hydrogen market. As you all know, Namibia, in fact, the late president, Hage Geingob, had that vision to develop a new industry, and that is supposed to be green hydrogen. And Namibia has been heavily pushing for green hydrogen investment in the country. And indeed, there is remarkable progress. The latest are MOU signed with Indian and Chinese companies to invest here in Namibia. Hyphen has challenges. I actually had a meeting with them on Saturday, together with a member of the German Bundestag. But they are making progress. There are still things that they need to do before they start production in 2027. but they are very confident that they are able to keep that date. And it's, as I said earlier, not only Hyphen, but a number of companies that are active in the country. We have Clean Energy, who are ready with phase 1, using 5 megawatt PV and electrolyzers to produce green hydrogen, as well as a training center to promote the training for young Namibians. Next year, they will start with their phase 2, constructing an ammonium tank in Walfish Bay for 40 to 50 tons of green ammonium. And after that, they will start with phase 3 with 500 megawatt PV to be built near Arandis, using 500 megawatt for green hydrogen production. We also have Elof Hansen Hydrogen starting with their production with an investment of also around 3 billion euro, again near Arandis for desalination and green hydrogen production. And this project is quite advanced in terms of licensing. We have Hirandis Consortia. We also have Zero Green Hydrogen, the Chinese company, which is at an early stage. They intend to produce 500,000 tons of green ammonia starting in 2029. And there are other interested companies, Chiffon Green Hydrogen, Neo Green Hydrogen, or Green Go Energy. One thing that I'm very impressed of is High Iron. I've seen High Iron is part of the program. They have been extremely successful. I was at the groundbreaking ceremony not even a year ago, and they have already started producing, but they will start producing in earnest in December, and that is very remarkable. As most of you know, there was a global African hydrogen summit here in Windhoek, which took place in early September. It was, in our view, a major successful milestone to make Namibia's green hydrogen efforts known across the world and to establish alliances and networks with other African partners in that sector. We had 2 deputy ministers, Staatssekretäre, here for this event, Mr. Flassbart and Mr. Kellner. And I think there was indeed also from our perspective a great push to raise awareness here in the country on the benefits of green hydrogen production. And I have to really commend the government of Namibia for what they have achieved, for what the people who are responsible for the green hydrogen sector in the government have done, have implemented to move this new industry forward. We need broader foreign direct investment in other sectors as well. I think sometimes in the country there are very high expectations, both with regard to the date when things can be implemented, as well as with regard to the local content, both in terms of substance as well as labor. And for that, there needs to be a strategy. Companies need to develop a strategy how to train people and how to get the products that they need from abroad, but also how to accommodate the aspirations of the government and of the people of Namibia who are looking for jobs, given the high unemployment rate, to bring everything together. So we need foreign companies. They are there. We need Namibian companies. And what we also need, and you know that we have elections coming up on the 27th of November, what we also need is a conducive environment for investors, whether they are Namibian investors or foreign investors. We have NIPDB, which is very active and proactive to promote a business-friendly environment. And that is, when I talk to business people, that is what what they expect. They expect a business friendly environment. They are wary of more regulations, of more rules that might inhibit their activities. But we, as I said, we have an actor like NIPDB, which has been extremely proactive, extremely successful. We have been lucky to work with them, just like you. And we believe that if everything works out well and there are no changes to the structure of NIPDB, that cooperation will be extremely successful for all of us in the future. With that, I would like to stop and hand over back to you, Alexa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Hutter. I will take over from Alexa from here. My name is Wiebke Polomka. I'm the Senior Manager for Southern Africa at Afrika-Verein, and I will be co-moderating with Alexa today. Thank you so much, Ambassador Hutter, also for always having an open ear for the businesses that come to you with their question and their remarks. We highly appreciate the support you give them. And you already mentioned the NIPDB, which will be our next speaker today. So I would like to ask Hafenyi Motsi, Senior Energy Investment Analyst at NIPDB, to take the screen. Hafenyi, I hope you are here and you can hear us. It will be your turn now.
Good day, everyone. I can hear loud and clear. Should I bring the presentation up from my side, Alexa, or?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Right. Thank you, Hafenyi.
Just give me a second. All right, Alexa, please confirm whether you could see my screen.
We can see it.
Perfect. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, Ambassador Thorsten, thank you very much for your kind words. And I'll stand on the protocol previously observed. For those who haven't, been to Namibia yet or done business in Namibia, I'm really hoping that this presentation will give you a very high level overview about some of the interesting things happening within Namibia's energy landscape at the moment. So without further ado, let me jump into the presentation. So for those who might not be familiar with Namibia, I'm just going to play a very brief video. Alexa, is the video playing? It's just a bit of a teaser we like to play every now and then, just so people get an appreciation for the beauty of the country, because Namibia offers more than just a really great place to do business, but in terms of quality of life and safety and security, we also have a lot to offer as well. But looking at some of the macroeconomic indicators of the country, just to give you an idea of where Namibia is, this is just a snapshot. So in terms of gross domestic production, we're sitting at somewhere about $14 billion US, but with a population of about 3 million at the moment, since our last census was concluded last year. With that said, when you look at these numbers, it paints the picture of Namibia being a relatively well-off, upper middle income economy. However, this indication isn't quite factual when you look at the reality on the ground. As His Excellency the Ambassador mentioned earlier on, Namibia still has issues battling unemployment rates as well as wealth inequality, which disproportionately affects the younger population in the country. There's quite a bit that Namibia needs to do in order to create sustainable economic growth, but also make it equitable across all demographic groups. just some indicators in terms of where Namibia is or where we rank globally. We were ranked on the top 10 safest destinations in Africa to travel to. We are #1 in terms of press freedom. I think we dropped to #2. This was, I think, from a ranking of 2022. We were also #1 in Africa in closing the gender gap, in closing the gender gap in 8th across the world. One of the things we do really well in that aspect is if we look at even in politics, our ruling party has what they call a zebra policy, a 50-50 representation of male and female within government and in senior leadership. So it's something that the country takes very seriously. We also have a really high literacy rate at about 92% in the country, and we've been ranked 9th in Africa in closing the startup closing the startup ecosystem ranking in the world. The discussion today was initially when Alexa and team reached out, was meant to speak about opportunities in the renewable energy and green hydrogen space. But it's my job to maybe broaden your perspectives a bit in terms of understanding government's position, which isn't just about producing renewable electricity or producing hydrogen for export, but there's a bigger picture that government is now pulling all its resources and creating new alignment towards. And you'll see I highlighted renewable energy here because when we speak about green hydrogen, it's a productive use of renewable energy, but this productive use spreads into the chemical sector with green hydrogen, green ammonia, and other base chemicals. But through green industrialization and the new blueprint that was laid, it also extends into mining, minerals, and adjacent industries as well. But there are about 9 priority sectors that we're looking to promote as a country, and the topics or the opportunities we're going to be discussing today cut across about 3 of them, if not more. So as mentioned, Namibia is classified as an upper middle income economy based on GDP per capita, but we still deal with very high levels of unemployment and unequal distribution of wealth. At the moment, the youth of between the age groups of about 18 to 35 are the ones who, or 16 to 35 are the ones who suffer the most from unemployment rate. And it's something we try to encourage at the NIPDB when dealing with prospective investors, that we try and maximize the social economic impact of these projects being developed in country. Something that's also interesting about Namibia is that for the longest time, when we look at the structure of our economy, a lot of our contributions to GDP come either from our primary industries or the tertiary industries. And it seems when you're thinking about an industrialized economy, having a lot of secondary and tertiary industries is typically a great indicator. But at the moment, when you look at the makeup of those tertiary industries, most of them are from activities from foreign-owned companies, particularly our largest trading partner, which is South Africa at the moment. So a lot of that economic value isn't really hosted in country. However, primary industries, we do really well in Namibia, and these are primary extractive sectors. This is your mining industry as well as fisheries. However, there's still a lot of work that we need to do as public and private sector to grow our secondary industries in terms of value addition, manufacturing, and beneficiation of natural resources. So those are just to keep in mind as we start diving into now Namibia's energy ambitions and where we stand as a country. So given a combination of factors that I'm going to be discussing shortly, Namibia really believes that we can leverage these different sources of competitive advantage and position the country as a sustainable energy capital of Africa. So this involves a number of things. When we look at the energy potential, apart from what a lot of people already know about Namibia, our amazing sunlight and really high solar irradiance, Namibia has recently made significant discoveries offshore in terms of oil and gas reserves, somewhere upwards of approximately 21 billion barrels if proven. Namibia has also historically been known to be a very large producer of uranium. We're the third largest producer, the second or third, depending on who you ask at any given time, of uranium. And we're also synonymous with having a significant amount of land that is notorious for being covered with biomass, invasive biomass species. There's up to 40 million hectares of land, arable agricultural land, which is currently affected by encroacher bush. But where what we previously used to see as a major inhibitor to the sector's growth, we now start to see as opportunities for taking this waste or this unuseful biomass and then inputting it into some other industries to create economic value. So Namibia is known to have a significant amount of renewable energy potential. In terms of solar PV irradiance, we have on average between 2,200 to 3,000 kilowatt hours per square meter per annum in terms of how much solar power could be produced on average across the country. And in terms of wind potential, for every 1 megawatt of installed capacity, you could produce almost 2,800 megawatt hours per annum. So we have really high capacity factors, although they're very isolated. I'll show you a map now that gives you a bit of a look about where that's located in country. But beyond just having these renewable energy resources, we started noticing a trend about 6 or 7 years ago where industries and government together came and started looking at how we could leverage these renewable energy potential that we have or resources that we have to create and capture more economic value for the country. And that's where, discussions around the production of green hydrogen and other synthetic fuels started coming into play. I'm going to skip this slide on policies, just to take you through a bit about what our renewable energy potential is. So the map on the left is an illustration of the solar irradiance in the country. As you can see, there's barely any point in the country, probably 2/3 of the country, if not more, where you could potentially set up solar PV and you would have really, really high capacity factors. With the wind energy, it's a little bit different. A lot of our wind potential is concentrated along the coastline. Namibia has the largest or the longest coastline on the western coast of the continent, and a lot of this area is covered by desert land. So in terms of human inhabitants, there isn't that much. However, a lot of this land has been protected in national parks, although you have some pockets of economic activity, whether it be tourism or some minor mining activities that happen in these areas as well. But in terms of wind potential, specifically on the southwestern coast of the country, where you have just around and south of Ludritz, there's a significant amount of wind resources that area sees. And all of this comes together when you're looking at green hydrogen production. Having solar PV that shines during the day, wind resources that blow typically when the sun isn't shining, and at all of this being located close to the coast, where one could get access to water for desalination, on land that is not inhabited by people, all comes together, creating the perfect storm for competitive green hydrogen production in country. The other aspect that we mentioned, that I mentioned earlier with regards to biomass potential, is that Namibia is, although we're a semi-arid country, we're covered by quite a significant amount of invasive biomass species, which act as an inhibitor in terms of cultivating arable land for food production in country. So various industrial groups together with government and DFIs have worked together and seen whether this invasive biomass species could be harvested in a sustainable way and how they could be utilized to create additional economic value. At the moment, a lot of the economic value being derived from the biomass in country is in the form of charcoal that is being exported. However, we are now starting to see emerging theoretical uses of biomass as a feedstock of carbon that could potentially be utilized for the production of synthetic fuels, but even producing of biochar, which could be used to enhance the fertility of the of the land, as well as potentially generate carbon credits or carbon offsets as well. So there's significant amount of beneficiation that we see potential for in terms of carbon, and a lot of this is going to be coming from these invasive biomass species. So all of this, as I mentioned, builds on Namibia's green hydrogen potential. That comparative advantage that we see us having as a country is a combination of those factors, but it goes beyond that. So purely just beyond producing green hydrogen, because at the moment it's seen as an export play, Namibia doesn't have a very large offtake potential for green hydrogen. A lot of it will probably be exported in the form of ammonia, e-methanol, and other synthetic fuels. So Namibia is looking to maximize the potential for producing these green molecules. This was articulated in Namibia's green hydrogen and derivative strategy, which is freely available online. I think I can also share the link for that with Alexa to share with you, so you know where to download it from. Building on this green hydrogen and derivatives agenda. So collectively as a country, I think we're looking to produce about anywhere between 12 to 15 million tons per annum by 2050. But this is in terms of green hydrogen equivalent. So it isn't just green hydrogen, it's also other forms of synthetic fuels and base chemicals that all build on the hydrogen molecule. But apart from this, we want to take it a step further. So we realize that as a country, we have a lot of land, we have access to water through desalination, we have a lot of renewable energy potential. What other industries could we develop or enhance with these resources being utilized all together? And that brings us to the concept of green industrialization. Namibia recently published a green industrialization blueprint, which it developed with some consultants. And in this green industrialization blueprint, there were a number of industries that were identified which could potentially benefit from these natural resources that we have abundance of. Some of the more obvious synergies are the synergies between your low cost renewable energy and hydrogen, and merging that with the already burgeoning industry we have in terms of mining and mineral mining and exploration. A great example of this synergy is what's happening with the high iron project. So taking an existing mineral commodity or metal commodity that we have as in country and beneficiating that and creating a product that is of higher value, not just in terms of sustainability, but also in terms of economic value. That's something that we're now trying to do as a country. But there are a number of other industries that were identified in this green industrialization blueprint. Apart from the refining of minerals like iron, lithium, and other rare earth elements, we see opportunity for going a bit further upstream in the value chain and leveraging the electricity we need to attract energy intensive industries and manufacturing, like the manufacturing of solar PV components, the manufacturing of electrolyzers, and the manufacturing of wind turbine balance of plant as well, just to name a few. I'm not going to say too much about the high iron project because I know Johannes Michels is on the call as well. So let me not spoil what he's going to share during his session as well. But some of the other success stories, go beyond purely just producing hydrogen for other industrial activities. But at this project, for example, the Daudas Green Hydrogen Village, and I think Jerome is on the call as well, who'll also be sharing some insights about his project and his business case. Projects like these are a synergy or create a synergy between food production, energy, and water, bringing all of those things, producing green hydrogen, taking that green hydrogen, producing ammonia, then taking that a step further, producing synthetic fertilizers in order to produce sustainable food in a really arid and dry area like the Namibian desert. We think is some of the type of applications that we would really like to incentivize and see more of as a country. So there's a lot of room for this kind of creativity and innovation, not just in terms of technology, but integrating existing technologies that we're aware of and applying it in areas that seem inhospitable, where these things should not exist, to create value, of course, that has never been seen before. And that's some of the work being done by the colleagues from the Daudes Green Hydrogen Village. Apart from that, Europe has also mentioned or made mention of a new market framework, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, which is something we believe is necessary, of course, to create more carbon consciousness within supply chains. But there has been questions about how this would impact countries that export, products and commodities to Europe at the moment. So historically, Namibia has always been trying to position herself as a logistics hub within the Southern African region. And we have really great road infrastructure. We have great port infrastructure, rail infrastructure that's fairly decent, but still needs to be upgraded. And now when you have cases where you are now producing green hydrogen that's being piloted with applications being piloted across the logistics value chain. Just for example, we have a project that's looking to pilot green hydrogen in a port environment, trying to decarbonize the infrastructure there. We have a project that's partnering. That's a partnership between the Namibian national rail operator and a Belgian company that's looking to pilot retrofitting locomotives with hydrogen combustion engines in order to decarbonize rail infrastructure. And we also have a hydrogen refueling station, probably the first one on the continent at the moment, that's looking to help create infrastructure, supporting infrastructure to decarbonize road infrastructure. And that opens up additional opportunity because Namibia is already a logistics route of choice for getting various commodities out of neighboring countries, from as far up as Zambia and the Congo, who currently export things like copper and some other minerals out through the Walvis Bay port, and some commodities from the Northern Cape in South Africa, like manganese, that are currently being exported through the Lutretz port. And having access to these green molecules and synthetic fuels that we're trying to produce in country will present a new opportunity for not just Namibia, but some of its neighboring countries that we currently help facilitate export for, to now facilitate export in a more environmentally sustainable manner, getting these commodities to the European market with a lower carbon footprint, to hopefully not be negatively impacted by the carbon border adjustment mechanism. So Namibia's play is really beyond purely just producing renewable energy and hydrogen. It really goes and stretches through almost every corner of the economy, from food production to mining and mineral beneficiation, and now even logistics. But I think that I'll just leave that there. There's a number of other stuff that I could say about why Namibia makes for a really good place to do business. But yeah, I could talk for the whole afternoon, and I want to give the other presenters a chance to speak from their experiences as well. So I think I'll end my presentation here. And yeah, thank you for your attention and your time.
Thank you so much, Shafeni. That was super insightful. I always love working with the NIPDB. Every webinar we're in and every event we host with the NIPDB, I always In German, we have this word schwärmen a bit. Like you are, I don't know how to translate it, Wiebke. How would you translate if you schwärm about something?
I'm also not quite sure at the moment, but we'll figure it out.
You say like you love them. So you're always very positive about your institution. So thank you so much for joining us again today. Next up, we have my colleague from the Southern African German Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Jens Hauser, who is our internal renewable energies expert and also an expert on green hydrogen. Jens, I can't see you now.
You should see me. My camera is on, and you should also hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Let me spotlight you so everybody else can also see you.
Thanks, Alexa. And I guess I'm also going to share my presentation and dive straight into this. I think picking a bit up where Hafeni has stopped or not provided further information on the specific topic of renewable energy and hydrogen in Namibia. But first of all, also a warm welcome from my side. Thanks for the introduction, Alexa. We have 2 hydrogen projects speaking after my presentation. So I think what I'm trying to do now in the 10 minutes, 12 minutes that I have available is put a few things with regard to renewable energy and green hydrogen in Namibia into perspective, starting basically with the energy market in Namibia, with a specific focus on renewable energy. To also not forget about this topic, we had a lot of hydrogen already. Namibia, as a fairly small country in size of population and economy, has also a fairly small power system. If we also compare this with other countries in Southern Africa or in Africa, the system is rather small. We have a maximum demand of just above 600 megawatts and a consumption that's about 3,500 gigawatt hours. So it's basically small, a low demand, but a stable growth. I think on average over the last 10 to 15 years, we see annual demand growth in electricity of about 4%, which is in part only matched from local installed production capacity. So if you see that with the installed capacity of about 850 megawatts, Namibia is only producing roughly 40% of its own power. And of the power that Namibia produces itself, we have to see that a lot of the power is actually already renewable. There's a big hydro installation in the north providing power, and almost 40% of the Namibian electricity derives from PV installation in country. Still, Namibia is really import dependent. So there's a high import dependency, in particular from South Africa, South African electricity is quite coal heavy. 30% of the electricity in Namibia is still from South Africa. That's also a point to keep in mind when I later speak a little bit about the energy policy. What sets Namibia apart, and I think is really a positive factor within the power market, is that liberalization of the power market has been advanced steadily, and we look at the really liberalized market where independent power producer, private companies can actually get active in the market, not only produce electricity, but also sell electricity. And that's possible via the market platform, the so-called modified single buyer model, the MSB, which is basically the trading model, the administrative model of the whole Namibian power market. And this model allows independent power producers to sell directly to industrial, commercial customers within Namibia, but also allows for project to export in the Southern African power pool. This is, first of all, really positive. There are some limitations in the system of 30% consumption, but the market is open for private involvement. So that also means that if you look at the stakeholders until now, there's this overarching NamPower, the vertical state-owned power utility, and regional electricity distributors, as well as municipal utilities. But they all now, with the model, interact really well together, which opens business opportunities for private investors. Also, the energy policy still calls for an expansion of the whole generation system, in particular focusing on renewable energy. And this all is with the aim of reducing these high volumes of electricity imports, as well as to electrify actually the almost 300,000 households in Namibia which still don't have access to electricity. The liberal power market, together with the energy policy, has actually led to a dynamic growth of renewables, so to say, mainly PV. There's still a bit of capacity to build to reach the target of 1,600 megawatts of generation capacity in about 10 years. So there are, in general, opportunities to build further renewables. Just have to keep in mind, there's already a qualified PV industry in Namibia. I think we saw a really positive development of local players who started in parts even 20, 30 years ago with small off-grid solar installation, and a lot of companies have grown into the industrial size of solar installation. What is lacking is basically knowledge or experience with wind power. To date, I think there's only 3 to 4 windmills installed in Namibia, in the Lüderitz area. So basically, the wind power industry is literally non-existent at the moment. I think Hafeni already spoke to the really good renewable energy potential, which leads to general low levelized cost of electricity in Namibia. I mean, PV, you can easily produce below the $30 per megawatt hour. The wind power, that it varies a little bit. At the coastline, you're really looking at favorable costs below $30 per megawatt. The further you go inland, basically the capacity factors decreases a little bit. So you're looking at higher costs, but still interesting and competitive. So there's basically a lot of positive things within the market, but the market has some limitations, in particular to consider as a new entry, as a new player within the market. We have the modified single buyer model, but most of the capacity at the moment that's within the system available is basically allocated. So new opportunities within the MSB at the present limited. We have a small market, I mentioned it before, a small power system, but that comes also with a limited amount of private customers, for instance, for direct PPAs with commercial and industrial consumers. And Namibia is facing a serious grid capacity constraint. I mean, the grid was never intended, or the existing grid was never intended to really provide for a lot of decentralized, fluctuating power sources. A lot of the capacity is taken up, or most of the capacity already, also in terms of exporting power to the Southern African power pool. So until the grid is not strengthened and expanded, business opportunities in renewables are basically limited by the grid. So if you really have to put a mark, it's difficult for a new entry, for instance, to get active in the renewable energy sector, with one exception, and this is basically green hydrogen. Namibia has some ambitious targets. We heard about it from Hafeni with positioning itself in this new emerging green hydrogen economy, but Namibia has good potential and good opportunities. All studies, if you look across the board, indicate that basically with the combination of solar and wind, so a hybrid power supply, the Southern Africa, and in particular Namibia, is well positioned to produce green hydrogen and any P2X products at competitive prices. Some indications of the prices I've given here, in particular the green ammonia price or production costs in Namibia look really favorable to be competitive with other emerging hydrogen exporters. Methanol and sustainable aviation fuel a bit limited. I come later to the point why. But all indications say that there's also a massive potential for further cost reduction in the next 20 years. So competitive already, and with the opportunity to reduce their cost, Namibia is really well positioned. And Hafeni has spoken to some of the strength already, but really to highlight that the renewable energy potential of Namibia is not only really, really high, it's also conveniently located close to the coast. So basically to have export projects, larger projects for P2X, for green hydrogen, in a good position for export, for transport to international markets. And I think sometimes it's also quite handy when you're a large country with not so much inhabitants and not so much activity. Namibia is one of the rather largest country in the world, but has the second least population in the world. That leaves basically less conflict to putting up big green hydrogen installations. That comes as a real advantage, in particular, again, at the coastal line of Namibia, which is really with low density population. And where Namibia really has to be congratulated on is that they really moved quickly in establishing a support structure within the country. In particular, the Namibian Green Hydrogen Council and the Namibian Green Hydrogen Program provide these structures to implement the strategy that is in place and drive the topic forward. I think this is really example, and even South Africa is eyeing on the structure of the Green Hydrogen Program to see if it's not if this is the best structure to go to push the topic. Also, we have a Namibian Green Hydrogen Association, which is really also active and good organized, some strong players within the association, and they actively participate in taking the sector forward. Nonetheless, there are some hurdles, which also comes a bit, let's say, with the history of Namibia, the industrial history, and the fact that the country is small in population. Basically, Namibia has no previous experience with hydrogen. Also, if you consider gray hydrogen, or like having an own chemical industry that has been non-existent until now in Namibia. Therefore, like the general experience is more than limited, not only on the industrial side, but also within the public structures. There's some lack of capacities, limited personal resources to drive the topic. And that comes with the point that when you get active as a private investor, you have to think further. I think also Ambassador Hutter mentioned it. It's not only about implementing your project as an early mover. It's also about helping to build capacity on the individual level of staff that you employ, but also on the partner side that you have in Namibia. You always have to consider that. Hafeni has mentioned the biogenic sources for as a carbon source for green hydrogen and power-to-X production, but this is kind of, let's say, limited and comes at the point that it's really decentralized carbon sources that makes it difficult also and from an economic viability perspective. And we just simply lack the carbon point sources in the country. So the opportunities for power-to-X, so taking green hydrogen and turn it into another product are a bit limited. And this is why most projects at the moment basically eyeing ammonia with the air separation of nitrogen as the option of choice at the moment, which is also kind of limited and gives some problems in scaling up projects and developing projects, is that we also have lack of local offtake opportunities at present. And that comes in particular at an issue as we see that international markets, international offtake is not as developing as quickly as anticipated. So having local offtake opportunities at least give you an opportunity for the first scales of your project to find a market. And green hydrogen comes at a fairly high investment cost. A lot of investment is necessary in infrastructure for mainly, let's say, public infrastructure in the harbors for transport and storage. And the Namibian economy is, let's say, also limited in size and leads to a limited public budget. So basically further sources of investment have to be found. And that comes to a kind of a mitigation of the hurdles, or let's say to the support, because on the positive side is that Namibia is basically receiving a strong public support to build a hydrogen economy. Germany, the EU, we heard of further agreements also with India and Asian countries. A lot of countries provide support to build up, in particular, the capacities to implement projects. But there's also a lot of development financing support, for instance, to the Namibian Green Hydrogen Fund, to have the investment capacities ready, for instance, to cater for common user infrastructure. I think Afeni has mentioned we have a country with a really stable political environment. And I think in general, there has been concerns raised from the environmental side towards green hydrogen, but in general, we see a complete positive attitude in society towards the topic. And there's a clear openness for partnerships with the private sector and foreign participation. So Namibia has been quite open for foreign investment, or really open for foreign investment, before the issue of green hydrogen came up. And this openness has been transferred to this new sector. So a lot of opportunities for foreign companies to get active. Basically, besides, because of the lack of, let's say, internal skills at present and the low level of own investment goods and technologies being produced in Namibia, there's business opportunities along the entire value chain of green hydrogen, from the power and water supply, water purification, to the actual electrolysis and the synthesis of P2X products into storage, logistics, and potential to create offtake. Should it be off-takers for the export market, but also engaging in activities of creating a downstream industry around the topic of green hydrogen. Because of time, I'm not going so much into details, and we hear about 2 projects later, just to highlight that there's already a lot of projects happening in Namibia. A lot of talks normally about the Hyphen project in the southern region, which is being basically built on public land following a public tender. That's what the Southern Corridor is all about, using the public land to create a lot of, let's say, a fair amount of larger export-oriented projects. But we also see in the Central Corridor, where the 2 projects that later talk now are located, there's a lot of private activities. The Cleanergy project has been mentioned, but there's also HDF from France building a peak load power plant using hydrogen and storage. We have High Iron, who's going to speak now, but also Davos Green Village. And we see further larger projects like Elofansen or Zero aiming to produce green ammonia for international markets. So basically, there's a cluster of projects emerging. There's a group of like-minded industrialists taking the topic further as initial projects, and also paving the way for further investments, because these projects help to shape the policy landscape, to support the development of regulations, of infrastructure. So a lot of involvement already. I mentioned the bilateral cooperation already. There's a lot of programs. The European Union and Germany have just signed at the Green Hydrogen Summit in Windhoek some further funding, in particular in the green hydrogen program of Namibia. I just want to highlight one project as an example, because this is a thing where the SA German Chamber is directly involved. Basically, we act as the Southern African hub for the program H2UP from Germany, from the German Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Action. And in a nutshell, we support with H2UP early development of hydrogen projects. So basically, in the scoping stage, in the stage where projects develop their feasibility study, we are open to support with a co-financing grant the further development of the project, de-risking it, trying to solve certain issues to enable the project actually to attain further financing, should it be from a public source or private investor, just pushing the project forward in the development phase. Any questions regarding H2UP, you're happy to contact me. And this is just one example of programs that are available in Namibia. Not a long resume. I think from an investment perspective, from a perspective to get active as a private company in the energy sector, Namibia is really, really interesting. A lot of potential for further renewables, in particular associated with green hydrogen. That's where I see the growth, because most of the projects have to be built as a power island. So separate renewables, not limited by the grid constraints, really good opportunity. In particular, we see that due to the renewable energy sources mainly, there are viable and attractive green hydrogen business opportunities, despite some barriers that still exist. There's international support available, and we see that the initial projects are moving forward, and I think that's been illustrated by the talks now from High Iron and Davos Green Village. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jens, for the presentation and for the insights. And you mentioned it already. We will now take a look at some case studies. And I would first like to ask Jerome Namazep, CEO of the Davos Green Hydrogen Village, to join us and talk about what you're doing in Namibia. Jerome, are you there?
Hi, yes, good morning. I am here.
Wonderful.
Please do let me know once you can see my screen for this. There you go.
Yes, now it's in presenter mode. Awesome.
Okay, perfect. Hi, good morning, everyone. And I please do stand on all of the protocol previously observed. Also, greetings to His Excellency who joined us, Ambassador Huta. I'm from the Davos Green Hydrogen Village, and I'm pleased to provide this presentation, which just gives an overview as to what we are busy with at the Davos Green Hydrogen Village. So in summary, and if I can just start from the conception, so the Davos Green Hydrogen Village is a generation project which is based in the Erongo region in Namibia. We are currently in the construction of a pilot phase, which is essentially complete. The pilot phase aims to demonstrate the nexus between hydrogen, ammonia, and agriculture. As you know, ammonia has been identified at Glasgow 26. I mean, the agricultural sector was identified at Glasgow 26 as one of the hard-to-abate sectors. In our phase one, we'll be producing about 18 tons of hydrogen and 100 tons of green ammonia, as well as about 500 tons of agricultural produce. We anticipate being in full operation by the end of this calendar year. And at the same time, we are also working actively towards the realization of fertilizer production, primarily ammonia sulfate fertilizer. This would be at demonstration scale as well in the pilot and could cater for about 30% of Namibia's ammonia sulfate consumption. But at the same time, as you can see by the map mass evidence in the screen, we have done quite a bit of work which leads towards the de-risking of an industrial development. And this has been done by our independent owners, engineers, Krishna. The feasibility study, which has been completed, points towards the potential realization of a 5+ gigawatt hybrid facility. which can produce in excess of about 180,000 tons of green hydrogen and about 1 million tons of green ammonia. Our MetMars campaign is actually coming to the end, to its end at the end of October. So in essence, actually by tomorrow, we should have about 12 months of, over the next few days, we'll have about 12 months of wind data, but it also points towards the project being mature and a lot of available data in our necessary data rooms, which points to, project concepts, resource optimizations, financials, cash flows, export strategies, procurement operation strategies as well. That being said, if I may say, the strategy for the firm moving forward is simply articulated by slides such as this, whereas currently we are in the process of finalizing the construction of our pilot. The need to actually finalize for this pilot is the installation of our electrolyzer and Haber Bosch unit, which are in the country, just awaiting arrival of our OEMs. But at the same time, when we do look at the short to medium term as well as longer term, short to medium term stage, we would look to address fertilizer market. As you know, Namibia, together with a lot of other countries in sub-Saharan Africa, are net importers of fertilizer, although the agricultural sector does act as the backbone for many of these economies. So it does open up to the question about the potential captive market that is waiting to be addressed. And then in the longer term, we would be looking at realizing this 5.5 gigawatt facility, which can produce in excess of about 1.8 million tons of green ammonia. Just a bit about our key project stakeholders, specifically for the pilot. The pilot has originated through grant funding, which was awarded on the back of a bilateral process between both the Namibian and German governments, with about 12 million euros being provided and sponsored by the Federal Ministry of Research and Education, the BMBF. Through the development of this pilot, we have taken liberty to de-risk this industrial development and work with numerous consultants in the process, of which a few of these names are reflected and shared on the screen. In terms of the facilities that have already been deployed in our pilot facility, I have provided for a site map, which effectively indicates all of the facilities available on site. So it's from staff housing, a training center, as well as a laboratory, community space, campsite, eco-lodge, the energy provision assets, together with reverse osmosis facilities, hydrogen generating assets, and agricultural assets on site. So this is just one of the earlier pictures for your conception and visualization of what the facility does look like. Just a bit about our agricultural facilities. We were pleased to have hosted His Excellency Dr. Nangolo Mbumba on a visit to our site about a week ago, to which he inaugurated our agricultural facilities. So this includes a butterfly greenhouse and a pad and fan nursery on site. And I just wanted to actually spend a bit of time to discuss the ammonia sulfate production process and what is actually intended. As I alluded to earlier, the realization of this asset would allow for the catering of about 30% of Namibia's ammonia sulfate fertilizer consumption. We have also completed the necessary studies that looks into the industrial production of nitric acid and ammonium nitrate. And we do believe that we will be able to realize this demonstration facility for ammonia sulfate by close of 2025, probably early 2026. In addition to that, this facility is well suited for training and capacity building programs and opportunities. So this project does feature a training center, laboratory, a mini wind turbine array with solar and battery configuration, as well as demonstration electrolyzer facility for training and research purposes, campsites, together with energy production equipment, water production equipment, and an agricultural facility. So we do believe that in due course, this facility will also open up for the provision of vocational training programs, as well as capacity building programs within the green hydrogen and green ammonia space. Also wish to point to the fact that this project is one of the ESG-friendly projects with some community participation and some impact. The project is located in one of the poorer communities in Namibia. We do have community representation through the form of 10% shareholding. The project to date has managed to create in excess of about 376 jobs, of which 115 of those have been persons from the local constituency. These were primarily temporary jobs during construction. Once in full operation of this pilot facility, will anywhere between 30 to 50 persons employed. The project has also ensured that SMEs, so small, medium enterprises from Namibia, have benefited from some of this construction process to the value of about 30 million Namibian dollars, 23 SMEs, of which 7 of those are from the Daros constituency. That being noted, some of the SDGs that this project does address is, of course, SDGs 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, 9, and 11. We do believe that it is one of the more ESG-friendly projects, and I would welcome engagement from any of the interested parties on the call with respect to potential collaboration, investigation of opportunities, or even just further information sharing. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Jerome. That was super insightful. I will, if you share the presentation with me, then I can also share it with everybody else together with the other presentations, so they have your contact details and participants of the webinar can get in touch with you. We will also have a Q&A session. I have put this in the chat before, so if there's any questions to any of the presenters, we'll be just after the next speaker, we'll have a Q&A session, so you can ask Jerome or any of the other speakers any questions you might have. All right, so next up, we will have the last project that we are showcasing today, and that's the high iron project, which was mentioned, I think, 2 or 3 times today. Johannes Miches, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you.
I am calling from the production side and want to thank you for the invitation today, and want to guide you a little bit through the high iron Oshivela project. Maybe to start off, I'll go out of the picture, then you can see behind me. That's actually where all the construction is going on at the moment. We've just been lifting the 12 megawatt electrolysis into its place. You can see in the background the PV power plant that powers our operations. If I can share my screen now, I will guide you a little bit through what we are actually doing and why we need hydrogen and why we need a lot of energy to produce green iron, and what is actually green iron. Let me see if you can see. Good. Can you see my screen now?
We can see that. Thank you, Johannes.
Perfect. So high iron, it's standing for hydrogen iron or green iron, and our project, it's actually our second project, Oshivela, is here in the Namib Desert, close to Swakopmund and Walfish Bay, roughly 1 hour drive from Swakopmund, where we've had the groundbreaking last year and started construction then in March this year. And we are now sort of in the final stages of construction of the plant. Our aim is to still, within this year, produce green iron. And what's actually green iron? In short, it is that we replace a very carbon-intensive process with a carbon-neutral process. And how that works is that in the beginning you have iron ore. That's what you can mine. That's what the basis for iron and steel production. It comes from the ground, and it is an oxide. So it's a combination of the element iron and oxygen, and it has a very, very strong bond. So to loosen this bond, you need a reducing agent. And in traditional iron and steel making, so around about 2 billion tons every year, the reducing agent is carbon monoxide. So most of the iron is produced by burning coals, so mainly carbon. So that becomes then carbon monoxide. And the carbon monoxide is a very strong reactant that draws the oxygen from the iron ore in a confined space in blast furnaces, for example, and you have big amounts of CO2 emissions. And on the other hand, you've got pure iron, so that's called pig iron or elemental iron. On the other hand, so what we do differently is we replace the carbon monoxide by hydrogen. So hydrogen is similarly a similarly strong reactant, and since it wants to go back to its natural or stable state, it will also react with the oxygen of the iron ore that you can see in the middle of the equation or the illustration. And so we get on the one hand the elemental iron, and on the other hand we get water again that we can recycle in the process. So how it works in general is that iron ore is mined, so it's taken from the ground, then it's crushed into fine materials. It is then separated into iron ore and waste materials, so mostly sand, and that is then transported to the middle to our industrial kiln. And from the other side, we produce renewable energy. That's what you saw before. And we use this energy to split water into its two elements into hydrogen and oxygen. And we bring the hydrogen into that kiln. Since it's airtight, the reaction will happen inside, so we can recover the water that is developing, and we can bring it back into the electrolysis. So that's a recycling, a circular process. And on the other hand, we've got pure iron that's called direct reduced iron that can then be briquetted and transported to the steel factories in the world. This is how it looks. So on the very far left, you can see the big kiln that's already standing. It was there in the background already. Next to it, you see the filters. And then on the very right, that's the housing for the electrolyzer. That's where we currently build a 12 megawatt peak solar, 12 megawatt electrolysis. And are due to commission it in the next month. On the very right of these pictures, you can see the product. That's how it looks. That's when it's briquetted. That is called cold briquetted iron. Around that, there are some impressions of how the project looks. That's on the very left bottom, that's when we lifted the kiln onto its place. Above that, it's the impression of the solar power plant. And yeah, so we also have a plan to scale up. We're actually currently in the engineering phase of the next production phases. So here's an overview about that. So the first production stage is a production of roughly 5 tons an hour for 3,000 hours a year. So only a daytime production. And we will produce 15,000 tons based on a solar power plant of 25 megawatt. And we plan to abate, or this production will abate around about 27,000 tons of CO2 emissions. That's roughly 50% of the CO2 emissions of the Namibian energy sector, or 0.75% of the total annual CO2 emissions of Namibia. and the investment is roughly 30 million euros. The second phase that we are currently planning has an energy requirement of roughly 260 megawatts and will produce also through the night 200,000 tons then a year, and that will abate around about 360,000 tons of CO2 emissions, and there was roughly 10% of the total annual CO2 emissions of Namibia. We plan to have or start or have a financial close for that in the mid of next year. Yeah, and why that in Namibia? So the very, very first point and most decisive point also is the abundance of renewable energy. Iron making, or this part of iron making is very, very energy intensive, and we are in competition to the energy from coal. So for us, energy prices are very decisive to be competitive on the global markets. And there we see big advantages. So in the engineering that we are currently doing, we see that we have generation costs in phase 2 that are below 1 euro cent per kilowatt hour, which is even for coal very hard to beat. So energy is the key expense along this whole value chain. So from the mine to the reduction process, it is a big part of the costs. Therefore, we believe also that the value chains will be adapted to the energy costs along it. And that's why we support a lot the concept of the electric steel making, which we see very beneficial and very competitive against the traditional route also in future. Second point, and very important, is the workforce. So just to illustrate the efficiency, we've built the 25 megawatt peak solar power plant only with local people in 6 months now. It's the second biggest solar power plant in Namibia. And we've done a lot of testing for the future, so for the upscale, and we see that that we can be even much faster. It's a lot of manual labor, a lot of people that have been busy constructing the power plant, and we have a lot of people available. And that has a very positive effect on the communities. Furthermore, we've got the available raw materials. So the transport or the logistics costs are relatively low. And since logistics is also a lot about energy, we also see large advantages, especially in future when the technologies have been developed that logistic can rely on the very cheap energy of Namibia from renewables, that in future we can anticipate very big reductions in prices also for the logistics. And then fourth and not least, it is the supportive government. So we have a very strong focus on public-private partnership. We have been involved a lot in regulations, in the questions around regulations. We have a word that is really also heard. We think this is very positive also to be there in a very early time of the development of the green industrialization, because there are a lot of positive potentials in taking part in policy making and developing a fertile ground for these industries, because a lot of these ideas can also support each other. Then there was a very supportive public administration. I can just repeat also towards Hafeni that we are very thankful towards the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board that have established all the contacts to the ministries and also helped to ensure efficient procedures. And then also, again, not least, the establishment of the Sovereign Wealth Fund. We see that as a very, very positive indication towards the future because such investments like here, they have very long horizons, and the Sovereign Wealth Fund is a very strong indication towards a future positive and stable administration for the future. Investments into education, into public administration are very positive for industrial projects like ours. Yeah, and that's a short overview. I will give now the mic back to Alexa, and I'm happy to receive questions if you have. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, Johannes. That was very interesting, as always. Super fascinating project. There are indeed some questions. There's one specifically for you before I go into the other ones. Johannes, what is the demand for your kiln versus electrolyzers? Do you import power to achieve the purification, or will the PV plant cover the needs?
So it's a complete off-grid system, and all the energy that we need, we produce in our PV power plant.
Thank you. Then the next question I have is for Hafeni. Has Namibia looked to South Africa for support with the biomass power opportunity? And then there was also a second question while you were talking, Hafeni, earlier about hydropower solutions. Is Namibia looking into hydropower?
Alexa, please repeat the first question.
The first question was, has Namibia looked to South Africa for support with the biomass power opportunity? The speaker, or the person who questioned, Mr. Jason Crew-Brown, was involved in some work related to that while still in Eskom, with a focus on reducing the overnight duration, optimizing capex investment.
As far as I'm aware, the Namibia National Power Corporation, NamPower, is spearheading the very first biomass to power plant in the country. It'll be a 20 megawatt facility. And if I'm not mistaken, they've already awarded the EPC contract for this. So it'll be the first of its kind in country, utilizing the same biomass source that I referenced in the presentation. But this will be for biomass to electricity, not necessarily biomass for as a carbon feedstock for other industry. The second question with regards to hydro, the answer is yes. Namibia is looking to invest in more hydroelectric power capacity. At the moment, we only have the Ruacana hydroelectric power station. However, together or in partnership with the Angolan government, Namibia will be investing in the Baines hydroelectric power station that'll be situated. I'm not certain whether it's a little bit further upstream from the current one, but yes, there is more investments coming into hydropower.
Thank you so much. And then also, I think to you, Feni, but also to Jens, the next question would probably be good. What are the perspectives on business opportunities for renewable energy from landfill gas to produce electricity and heat?
Hafeni, do you want to go first, or should I go?
Let me go first, because I provided a comment to this question in the chat as well. So definitely, I think in terms of government support for beneficiating waste to energy, yes, the government will definitely support that. It's in line with our circular economy ambitions. The only risk that there might be is the risk of economic viability, because We've had some discussions with companies looking to do waste to power projects, and they cited that Namibia doesn't produce, specifically Windhoek, doesn't produce enough volumes of waste that could be consumed sustainably by these facilities. So that's probably the only risk in terms of viability. But I mean, feasibly, yes, I think it is feasible. From a government standpoint, we would definitely support that.
Thanks,
I think
Afeni.
Yeah, I think Afeni has mentioned most of the points. I mean, that speaks again. Basically, if you look at Namibia for the purpose of like using landfill gas, that literally besides Windhoek, where there are already questions if the amount of waste is actually sufficient, and in particular also the infrastructure and the structure of the landfilling is supportive to landfill gas. You literally only have Walvis Bay and Swakop as a kind of the second kind of urban structure where you would create kind of volumes for these things. So it's basically you might look into one or two sites for this technology. That's the limit in the Namibian market, and there might be. I think there's a high question of the viability, in particular to the amount of gas that you can extract.
Thank you. Thanks, Jens. And then also a very general question to Namibia, probably also more posted towards Hafeni, and maybe Jens can comment. Is Namibia looking at geothermal? Lots of ONG drilling knowledge available.
As far as I'm aware at the moment, no. Geothermal energy is not being explored at the moment. The geothermal energy sources are mostly being developed for tourism related activities, but not necessarily for electricity or energy generation.
It's also that the geothermal is not reflected in a Namibian integrated resource plan, where some allocations, national allocations have been given to renewable energy technologies for grid connection that basically focus on wind and photovoltaic. And there's no other technologies except to a limited extent the biomass, which Afeni just mentioned from NamPower. That's the third technology. All other technologies are not reflected in the integrated resource plan, which guides basically the development of technologies in Namibia.
Thank you, Jens. I'm not seeing any other questions, so I would like to hand over to Wiebke, my colleague from the Afrika-Verein and my co-presenter today, to do the closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Alexa, and thank you to all of our speakers for taking the time today for your presentations and very insightful speeches that you gave. I think the projects are very interesting, and we're all very excited to see where you will be in 1 or 2 years when you start producing at high iron, when Daures is coming into production. And I think there's also still a lot of opportunities for other companies to join, become partners. We can only highly encourage you, look at Namibia. We have very engaged people there. We have Hafeni at NIPDB and colleagues that we've been working with for a long time. We have the German embassy, the other embassies there. So yeah, as a closing remark, take a look at Namibia. If you have any other questions, Alexa posted the contact points for Swiss companies, for Austrian companies, for German companies. We will be happy to support you with any questions that you have to connect and link you with the right people. And yeah, we are there for your business in Namibia, and hope to see you soon. And have a wonderful rest of the day, and looking forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.